What's going on, everyone? So now that JJ Redick is officially the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, what they need to do now is really hit on the bench, right? I'm all for JJ Redick being the head coach. I've said it from day one. I believed he was going to be the head coach from day one. Turns out, hey, guess what? He is the head coach, right? Okay, cool. We got our head coach, finally, right? Now we don't have to go through all this just chaos and all the frustrations and everything that came with just this chaos, this circus that was there. And it's something that I talked about, right? Like, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I think JJ Redick is locked up. I think all the reports and everything are basically just noise, right? Because people need stuff to talk about, right? So I think it was all just noise. I think JJ was always going to ultimately be the head coach, and here we are, right? He is now the head coach. So given that JJ Redick is the head coach, one of the things that I really have tried to express in these videos is that I'm not really worried about the on-court stuff, right? He has shown the ability to, go about the X's and O's, draw play designs, simplify it, which is really good, right? Because you want to be able to simplify it and relay it to all your players in a simplistic form so that way they can execute it to the best of their abilities, right? But the X's and O's, like the coaching aspect, like the on-court coaching, like the rotations, obviously he's going to have to work through that and kind of figure that out. But every coach, right, is going to do that. You get a new roster, you get a bunch of new players, trying to figure out which lineups are the best, doing a little experimentation, all that stuff. That's why I even defended Darvin Ham early on, because it was like, hey, that's what you're supposed to do. Supposed to see, does this lineup work? Does this lineup work? Does this lineup work? Now, Darvin Ham at times was a little extreme with it, but my problem with Darvin Ham was just like, we got 20, 25, 30 games in, and he was still experimenting. It's like, dude, like at some point, you got to actually sew up the roster, right? But the first like 10 to 20 games or whatever, sure, obviously you want to win, and you know who your best five are really. So, you're going to go with them. But in the in-between, that's where you kind of, hey, let's get a little look at this. Okay, that's not working. Okay, let's try this, right? I don't mind that. I think JJ Redick's going to be good with the executions. I think he'll be good with the preparation. I think, he understands the game. I think he'll have good offensive schemes, defense schemes. I think we'll be good in that regard. I worry about the behind the scenes stuff. I worry about, the managing of egos, the dealing with agents, dealing with organization, right? Strategizing, game planning, doing film, right? Like there's just so many things that go into being a head coach that, most people aren't even aware of, that is all part of the job that he's going to have to deal with and he's going to have to navigate and figure out, right? So one of the big things that I really want the Lakers to do is to get some experience on the bench, right? If it's Terry Stott, which we saw him, look, the big problem is finding somebody that is willing to basically come to the bench and back up somebody has less experience than you, right? It's like, it's like you're more qualified for the job, or you feel like you're more qualified for the job, but you have to train your replacement essentially, right? It's like, why am I doing that? But Terry Stotts is a guy that showed he was willing to kind of help prep the coach of the future, right? You saw it with Jacques Vaughn until him and Vaughn ended up having that falling out, and he was like belittling him or whatever on the sidelines in front of everybody and stuff, and he was just like, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'm leaving, right? Would he be willing to do that with JJ Redick? Would he be willing to come in, kind of be the lead assistant alongside JJ Redick? There's talks about like a Jeff Van Gundy, right, that he may be willing to come on and he coached JJ Redick. He's familiar with JJ Redick. Kind of be a guy you just saw. Jeff Van Gundy went to Jeff Van Gundy went to the Clippers. Stan Van Gundy is the guy that is with the that could potentially be with the Lakers, right? So Stan is the guy that coached JJ. Jeff, his brother, he went to the Clippers, and he is the lead assistant for the Clippers, right? So maybe Stan is a guy that's like, hey, I'll come on board with the Lakers. Like, let's do that, have the little LA rivalry. I think that's something to go along. They just need somebody that can basically kind of help guide JJ with all the noise that goes on as being a head coach, so that at least the first 2 years or so he can really kind of get the grasp, get the understanding, kind of get his feet wet, get everything kind of in order, his ducks in a row. And then, you can kind of take training wheels off at some point. You're going to have to at some point. But to me, the bench is arguably as important as the roster, right? Obviously, you have to have a roster competitive and talented enough to go contend for a championship, right? And, the expectation with even JJ is like, hey, we need to win a championship, right? We're the Lakers. You got LeBron. We're in win now mode, right? And I think because a lot of people are like, oh, are we really going to win a championship with JJ Redick? I mean, you could say that with every coach, right? Like every coach that comes in, they're coming in, they're going to initiate, even if they did sign a James Borrego or a Sam Cassell or whomever. If you're somebody that's like, oh, I would have rather had them, even that person, there's no guarantee. If there was a guarantee that, hey, if you hire this coach, you're going to win a championship, then that's a no-brainer. But every coach, I mean, even the best, Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, right? They don't win every year. Right? And you're talking about a coach that's coming in that's going to have to, kind of implement a new offense, a new defense, a new structure, right? You're going to probably have a big rehaul of the roster, right? There's going to be a lot that goes into this season. I'm not saying that the Lakers can't win. I'm not saying that JJ Redick can't be, the catalyst to lead this team. But we also have to have a roster that's good enough to do that, right? We have to have the talent that the coach can now utilize and hopefully properly, take the put in the proper position to lead to a championship, right? You have to have that balance. But something that I've talked about, like you look at the 2020 roster, right? You had a roster that was unbelievable, right? I mean, the Lakers were the best team in the league all year and just ran through everybody, right? They had the roster that was ready to win, that was comparable and, a championship roster. But the coaching staff was arguably as good as the roster when you're talking about coaching staffs, right? You talk about Frank Vogel and his defensive schemes and his ability to really maximize big men, right? Then you had Jason Kidd in his offensive schemes and his ability to really maximize guards. And then you had like Lionel Hollins, who basically was a nice balance and kind of the guy that was the equalizer, right? And then you had Phil Handy for development and just being the player coach and all that. Like you have the Avengers of a coaching staff alongside this roster that was good enough to win. So to me, I want to see the Lakers kind of do something similar, right? Bring in JJ Redick. That's great. Bring in a Terry Stotts or, a Stan Van Gundy. Cool. It's got that. Now you got an assistant that understands the proper way to handle being a head coach, kind of help guide JJ. Cool. Then, I wouldn't mind bringing in a Rajon Rondo. Right? I wouldn't mind bringing in, a Jared Dudley or something like that. Can you bring in some of these guys, maybe even bring back a Phil Handy, and really kind of round out this bench to where it's like, okay, now you have a championship level bench alongside a championship level roster. Put those two together, and it should translate and equal an NBA championship. That's the idea. That's the goal. That's the hope. But to me, I think that the Lakers really, now you got the head coach, right? Obviously, the Lakers got to worry about the draft. They got to worry about all that other stuff. But you need to make sure you get the coaching staff right. You need to make sure you fumbled the bag with Darvin Ham, right? Because originally when Darvin Ham was hired, the Lakers were going to pick the coach. The Lakers wanted an experienced, former head coach to come in and be that guy to kind of help guide Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham wanted to pick his own staff. The Lakers said, okay, fine. And it eventually turned out to be a disaster, right? So to me, you got to get that guy. If you can't get a Stan, if you can't get a Terry Stotts, can you get a Scott Brooks? Anybody, right? You need somebody that understands what goes on with being a head coach. And that way, JJ can kind of focus and put his attention on just the game aspect of it, learn the ins and outs on the behind the scenes, the back end of things, and then you have the remainder of the coaching staff kind of chiming in and doing what's necessary to really kind of lead this team. That, in my opinion, is arguably as important as anything else that they do this season, right? Because if you have JJ Redick and a bunch of inexperience, right, even if you do bring in a Rondo and all that stuff, it's just, again, you're really maybe JJ can handle it. Maybe he can do it. I don't know, right? Like, that's always been my thing. I don't know. So many people are so willing to write off JJ. And me, I'm like, let's wait and see. Because a lot of people have the potential of having egg on their face if JJ turns out to be great. Right? I'm not even talking about winning a championship out the gate. Right? There's only been, 5 coaches in the history of the league that have actually done that. But I'm talking about, like, if he actually does become the head coach that the Lakers believe that he can be, right? A lot of people are going to be like, they're going to be eating shoes, right? Like, so to me, it's like, let's wait and see. But you need to give JJ the best opportunity to have success, in my opinion. And the best way to give him the best opportunity to have success is to properly round out the coaching staff to give JJ that opportunity. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Like, yes, you have to get a proper coaching staff to pair alongside JJ Redick. Do you think, like, no, like, hey, JJ either has it or he doesn't? I feel whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.